Hello and welcome to Peacetime Story, your cozy corner for calm, comfort, and deep sleep. Every night here is an escape into soothing tales, gentle adventures, and peaceful journeys crafted just for you. If you enjoy drifting into dreamland with us, don't forget to subscribe and join our growing Peacetime Story family. Together, we're building a warm community where bedtime means relaxation, calm hearts, and beautiful dreams. So settle in, make yourself comfortable, and let the story carry you gently into the night. Let's begin. Hercule Poirot's Death in Three-Act Tragedy. Chapter 1. The Enigmatic Invitation. The fog clung to the cobblestones of Baker Street like a jealous lover, swirling in eddies around the gas lamps that flickered defiantly against the encroaching dusk. Hercule Poirot, impeccably attired in his signature tailcoat and patent leather shoes, paused at the threshold of his modest apartment, his waxed moustache twitching as he inhaled the crisp November air. It was 1935, and London thrummed with the pulse of an empire on the cusp of uncertainty, but Poirot's world was one of precision, of order amid chaos. He adjusted his silver-headed cane, its tip tapping rhythmically as he descended the steps, only to be intercepted by his faithful valet, George, who emerged from the shadows bearing a silver tray. "Monsieur, a telegram has arrived," George intoned with his usual unflappable calm, presenting the envelope as if it were a rare artifact. Poirot's green eyes narrowed, his fingers, delicate yet unyielding, plucking the missive with the grace of a conductor lifting his baton. The seal bore the insignia of the Royal Theatre Guild, a flourish of gold embossed on cream parchment. He slit it open with a practiced flick, unfolding the paper to reveal words that danced like shadows across the page. "My dear Poirot, the stage awaits your discerning eye. Tragedy in Three Acts premieres tonight at the Lyceum. Secrets unravel, souls laid bare. Imperative you attend. Yours in Intrigue, Sir Reginald Beaumont." Poirot's lips curved into a faint smile, his mind already weaving threads of curiosity. Sir Reginald, that flamboyant maestro of the dramatic arts, had not crossed his path since the affair of the stolen sapphire necklace in Monte Carlo 5 years prior. Back then, Beaumont's playhouse had been a den of deception, where actors masked more than their roles. What fresh enigma beckoned now? Poirot tucked the telegram into his pocket, his little grey cells humming like a well-oiled machine. "George, prepare my evening attire. The theatre calls, and one does not keep the muse waiting." The Lyceum Theatre loomed on Wellington Street like a Gothic sentinel, its facade adorned with gargoyles that leered down at the arriving throng. Carriages disgorged a glittering array of London's elite, fur-draped ladies with diamonds glinting like captured stars, gentlemen in top hats exchanging murmurs of stock market woes, and impending storms across the Channel. Poirot navigated the crowd with the agility of a fox, his diminutive stature belying the commanding presence that parted the sea of bodies. He presented his invitation at the gilded doors, where a liveried usher bowed low, ushering him into the opulent foyer. The air was thick with the scent of polished wood, fresh roses from the bouquets lining the walls, and the faint undercurrent of anticipation, perfume mingled with the subtle tang of stage grease paint. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over marble floors veined like ancient rivers. Poirot accepted a program from a young attendant, his eyes scanning the cast list. Elias Thorne as the tormented protagonist, Vivian Harlow as the enigmatic ingenue, and a host of supporting players whose names evoked whispers of scandal in the tabloids Sir Reginald's latest opus, Tragedy in 3 Acts, promised a labyrinthine tale of betrayal, where each act peeled back layers of human frailty, culminating in a revelation that mirrored life's cruel ironies. A familiar voice boomed across the foyer. "Poirot, you old sleuth, I knew you'd heed the call." Sir Reginald Beaumont strode forward, his cape swirling dramatically, his silver hair swept back like a lion's mane. At 60, he retained the vigor of a man half his age, his eyes sparkling with the fire of creation. They clasped hands, Beaumont's grip firm and theatrical. "Mon ami, how could I resist? Your summons was as cryptic as a cipher from the Sphinx," Poirot replied, his Belgian accent lending a melodic lilt to his words. "What shadows lurk behind this curtain of yours?" Beaumont chuckled, a deep rumble that echoed off the walls. "Ah, ever the detective. Let's just say the play draws from life, too closely, perhaps. But come, your seat awaits in the royal box. Observe and tell me if my illusions hold." As the house lights dimmed, Poirot settled into the plush velvet chair, the orchestra swelling with a haunting overture that wove strings and brass into a tapestry of tension. The curtain rose on a sumptuous drawing-room set, gaslights flickering to mimic candle flames. Elias Thorne, the star, commanded the stage as Lord Harrington, a man haunted by ghosts of his past. His voice, rich and resonant, filled the auditorium, drawing gasps from the audience as he delivered lines laced with foreshadowing. In 3 acts does tragedy unfold, deception, despair, death. Vivian Harlow glided on stage, her gown a cascade of emerald silk that caught the light like dragon scales. She was the picture of poised allure, her dialogue sharp as a stiletto, bantering with Thorne in a dance of words that hinted at forbidden passions. The first act built to a crescendo, the ensemble cast weaving in and out like threads in a loom. A scheming valet, a wide-eyed maid, a rival suitor with eyes like daggers. Then, midway through a pivotal monologue, Thorne faltered, his hand clutched at his throat, his face paling under the grease paint. The poison. It courses through veins unseen. He gasped, the line blurring into reality as he staggered, collapsing in a heap amid the props. The audience murmured, uncertain if this was masterful improvisation or catastrophe. Harlow screamed, a piercing, genuine cry that shattered the illusion. The curtain dropped hastily, house lights flooding the theatre as ushers rushed forward. Chaos erupted backstage, a whirlwind of shouts and scurrying feet. Poirot, ever the observer, slipped through a side door, his cane tapping a path through the labyrinth of ropes and pulleys. The air reeked of sawdust and sweat, illuminated by harsh bulbs that cast long shadows. Thorne lay on a makeshift cot, physicians hovering like vultures, their faces grim. "Poison," one muttered, administered somehow during the performance. Sir Reginald paced nearby, his cape discarded, revealing a rumpled shirt stained with worry. Impossible. The props were checked. Elias was fine during rehearsal. Poirot's eyes darted, cataloguing details. A crystal goblet on the set table, its rim glistening unnaturally. A misplaced vial among the makeup kits. Whispers among the cast. Eyes averted in feigned shock. He approached Harlow, who dabbed at her eyes with a lace handkerchief. "Mademoiselle, you were closest. Did Monsieur Thorne partake of anything unusual?" She hesitated, her voice a tremor. "Only the prop wine, harmless grape juice. But as there was tension. Elias had rivals. The understudy, Marcus Hale. He's ambitious, always lurking, watching." Poirot nodded, his moustache quivering as he turned to the understudy in question. "Hale, A lanky youth with sharp features and hungry eyes fidgeted in the corner, his script clutched like a shield. "Monsieur Hale, where were you during the scene?" Hale's Adam's apple bobbed. "In the wings, sir, ready if needed, but I swear I touched nothing." Yet Poirot's gaze fell upon Hale's sleeve, where a faint purple stain mirrored the goblet's residue. "And this mark, it suggests otherwise." He leaned in, his voice a velvet blade. "Ambition is a fine motivator, but sabotage, that is the act of a coward." The interrogation unfolded like a well-rehearsed scene. Hale cracked under Poirot's relentless logic, confessing to tampering with the goblet, not with lethal intent, but to induce a mild illness, ensuring his own spotlight. "Elias hogs the glory. I just wanted a chance," he blubbered as constables led him away. Order restored, the theatre buzzed with relief. Thorne, recovering from what proved a non-fatal dose of ipecac disguised as poison, would return for tomorrow's show. Sir Reginald clasped Poirot's hand once more. "You've saved the production, my friend." A minor drama averted. But as Poirot exited into the foggy night, a chill unrelated to the weather prickled his skin. The understudy's act felt too pat, too isolated. Whispers of deeper feuds lingered, the playwright's own secrets perhaps. A misplaced prop here, a whispered grudge there. These were mere ripples on a pond hiding greater depths. No, this was but the opening salvo, the first act in a tragedy far more intricate. Poirot hailed a cab, his mind already plotting the next move, drawn inexorably into the web that Sir Reginald had spun. The cab clattered away, vanishing into the mist, leaving the Lyceum's lights twinkling like distant stars, harbingers of the darkness to come. Chapter 2. Shadows behind the curtain. The morning after the premiere dawned crisp and unforgiving. The Thames, a sluggish ribbon of steel under a sky bruised with impending rain. Hercule Poirot, having savoured a breakfast of café au lait and croissant in his Baker Street sanctuary, felt the pull of unfinished business like an itch beneath his starched collar. The understudy's confession had tied a neat bow on last night's disruption, but Poirot's intuition, those infallible little grey cells, whispered of knots yet to unravel. Sir Reginald Beaumont's play, with its echoes of ancient curses and modern malice, demanded a return to the Lyceum's underbelly. He donned his overcoat, its wool heavy with the scent of lavender from George's meticulous pressing, and set forth, cane in hand, toward the theatre district. The backstage entrance yawned like a forgotten alley mouth, flanked by crates of discarded scenery and the faint hum of rehearsals resuming. Poirot slipped inside, the air thick with the aroma of fresh paint and stale coffee, mingled with the metallic tang of rigging cables. Stage hands bustled about, their overalls smeared with grease, while costumiers darted like hummingbirds, pins clenched in teeth. He sought out the director, Alistair Crowe, a wiry man with a perpetual squint from years under harsh spotlights, who was barking orders at a cluster of technicians adjusting the fly system. "Monsieur Crowe," Poirot greeted, his voice slicing through the din like a scalpel. "A moment, if you please. The events of last night, they are but the tip of the iceberg, non?" Crowe turned, his face a map of furrows, etched by deadlines and disappointments. "Poirot, Beaumont mentioned you'd poked around. We've got a show to salvage. Elias is back on his feet, ranting about artistic integrity. What more is there?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Ah, but integrity is fragile, like a spider's web. Tell me of the tensions here. The diva, Mademoiselle Harlowe, rumours swirl of her entanglements." Crow's squint deepened, but he led Poirot to a cluttered office tucked behind the prop room, its walls plastered with yellowed posters of past triumphs. As they settled into creaking chairs, Crow lit a cigarette, the smoke curling like a question mark. Vivian's a firecracker. She's been seeing Reginald's nephew, young Lionel Beaumont, on the sly. He's the set designer, talented but hot-headed. Reginald disapproves, thinks it'll distract from the production. And then, there's my own mess. He exhaled heavily. Debts, Poirot. The theatre's bleeding money. This plays our last shot before the creditors come knocking. Poirot leaned forward, his fingers steepled. And the script, whispers of a curse, like the Scottish play one dares not name. Crow chuckled bitterly. Superstition runs rampant here. Reginald based it on an old Greek myth, hubris leading to downfall. But some say he lifted ideas from a forgotten collaborator who vanished years ago. Cast thinks it's jinxed, props going missing, lights flickering oddly. Balderdash, if you ask me. Their conversation was interrupted by a sharp cry from the stage. Poirot rose swiftly, following Crow through the maze of corridors to the main auditorium. There, amid the skeletal framework of the set, a faux marble hall adorned with velvet drapes, a stagehand named Thomas Grady lay sprawled beneath a bank of overhead lamps, his body convulsing in the aftermath of a violent spark. The air crackled with ozone, and the scent of charred fabric hung heavy. Fellow workers formed a horrified circle, one shouting for a doctor while another fumbled with the power switch. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured, kneeling beside the fallen man. Grady's hands were blistered, his eyes wide in eternal shock. A quick examination revealed frayed wires snaking from the lighting rig, deliberately stripped and rerouted to deliver a lethal surge. This is no accident. Sabotage, calculated and cruel. The theatre descended into pandemonium, actors emerging from dressing rooms in half-costume, their faces painted masks of fear. Sir Reginald arrived dishevelled and pale, his cape forgotten in the rush. Grady. He was reliable as clockwork. Who would do this? Poirot's mind raced, piecing fragments like a mosaic. He directed the constables, who had been summoned post-haste, to cordon the area. Interrogations began in earnest, starting with the prop master, Elias Thorne's longtime confidant, a burly fellow named Bertram Fisk, with a beard like tangled underbrush and eyes that darted like cornered prey. Monsieur Fisk. Poirot began in a makeshift green room, surrounded by mirrors reflecting infinite suspicions. You handle the accoutrements. Yes, including a certain vial of toxin reported missing from the chemistry props. Fisk's hands trembled as he poured himself a tumbler of water from a nearby decanter. Missing? I logged it yesterday for the poison scene in Act 2. But things vanish in this madhouse. Scripts, jewels, sanity. Poirot's gaze pierced. And your alibi for the lighting tamper. Witnesses place you near the rig an hour ago, arguing with Grady over a misplaced ladder. Fisk sputtered, water sloshing. We bickered, sure. He was always meddling, claiming my props were hazards, but kill him. Preposterous. Yet, as Poirot pressed, inconsistencies unraveled like pulled threads. Fisk's logbook, produced under duress, showed forged entries, ink still fresh on pages claiming the vial's return. A search of his locker yielded the pilfered container, its label smeared but contents matching traces found on the wires. A conductive gel laced with accelerants to amplify the shock. You enhance the danger, Poirot accused softly. Why? For grudge or something deeper? Under the weight of evidence, Fisk crumbled, his beard quivering. It was the debts, Crow's debts. He promised me a cut if I scared off the crew, forced a shutdown. Insurance payout, you see. But Grady caught me rigging the lights. I didn't mean to. It was supposed to be a spark, not slaughter. The confession rippled through the cast like a shockwave. Constables hauled Fisk away, his pleas echoing down the halls. Crow, overhearing, blanched and denied involvement. But Poirot noted his sweating brow, a telltale sign for later scrutiny. Rehearsals halted briefly, the theatre a hive of hushed conferences as technicians repaired the damage under watchful eyes. By afternoon, a fragile peace descended. Elias Thorne, recovered and resolute, rallied the troupe with a stirring speech from the stage. We honour Grady by pressing on. Tragedy begets triumph. Applause followed, tentative at first, then swelling. Vivian Harlow approached Poirot in the wings, her emerald eyes shimmering with unshed tears. You've a knack for this, detective, but it feels orchestrated, like we're pawns in Reginald's grand design. Poirot inclined his head. Indeed, mademoiselle. The curtain conceals much. Affairs of the heart, burdens of coin. These are motives, but perhaps veils for a greater scheme. As evening fell, Poirot lingered in the empty auditorium. The house lights dimmed to a ghostly glow. He traced his fingers along the set's ornate carvings, sensing the pulse of secrets embedded in the woodwork. Fisk's arrest had quelled the immediate storm, yet an undercurrent tugged at him, an invisible hand pulling strings from the shadows. Was it the director's desperation, the diva's hidden flames, or something ancient, reborn in the playwright's words? The theatre sighed around him, boards creaking like whispers of warning. Poirot straightened his tie, resolve hardening. The second act beckoned, and with it, perils unseen. Outside, rain pattered against the windows, blurring the world beyond. Poirot stepped into the deluge, umbrella unfurling like a shield, his thoughts a whirlwind of possibilities. The puppeteer remained elusive, but Hercule Poirot would not be outmaneuvered. Not yet. Chapter 3. The poisoned chalice of revelation. Twilight draped London in a veil of indigo silk, the street lamps along the Strand, igniting like fireflies awakening from slumber. Hercule Poirot, his overcoat buttoned against the evening's bite, emerged from a hansom cab outside the Lyceum's grand archway. 2 days had passed since the electrocution of Thomas Grady, and the theatre pulsed with renewed fervour. The second act premiere of Tragedy in 3 acts, looming like a storm cloud pregnant with thunder. The arrest of Bertram Fisk had quelled the surface ripples, but Poirot sensed undercurrents swirling deeper, pulling at the foundations of Sir Reginald Beaumont's empire. His little grey cells, ever vigilant, demanded excavation into the playwright's shadowed history. Inside, the foyer buzzed with the chatter of patrons arriving early, their laughter a brittle facade over the whispers of recent scandals. Poirot bypassed the throng, heading straight for the archives tucked beneath the stage, a dusty vault of forgotten scripts and yellowed correspondence, guarded by a wizened librarian named Miss Evelyn Thorpe. She peered at him over half-moon spectacles, her fingers ink-stained from decades of cataloguing dramatic relics. "Monsieur Poirot," she rasped, her voice like parchment rustling. "Sir Reginald warned you'd come sniffing. What ghost do you seek?" Poirot offered a courteous bow. "The living cast long shadows, mademoiselle. Tell me of Beaumont's early days, the masterpieces that birthed his fame. Rumours speak of collaborations lost to time." Thorpe's eyes flickered with reluctance, but she unlocked a cabinet groaning under the weight of bound volumes. Reginald was a prodigy, but not alone. In 1910, he co-authored Echoes of Eternity with a brilliant recluse, Victor Langford. A triumph. Yet Langford vanished after accusations of plagiarism. Reginald claimed sole credit, Langford's name erased. Some say he fled to the continent, broken. Others whisper foul play. As she spoke, Poirot pored over faded letters, heated exchanges where Langford accused Beaumont of theft, demanding royalties for ideas pilfered from his drafts. A final missive, dated mere weeks before the disappearance, bore a cryptic warning. The heir to my genius will claim what is owed in acts of retribution. Poirot's moustache twitched, threads connected. The play's theme of inherited curses mirrored this buried feud. Victims Thorne and Grady had ties. Thorne's understudy role in that ancient production, Grady's father a stagehand who witnessed the fallout. Betrayals intertwined like vines choking a trellis. Energized by these revelations, Poirot ascended to the bustling rehearsal hall, where the cast honed the second act's intricate choreography. Elias Thorne, voice booming, embodied Lord Harrington's descent into paranoia, while Vivian Harlowe's ingenue wove spells of seduction. But Poirot's gaze fixed on a newcomer, Desmond Vale, a sleek investor with oiled hair and a smile sharp as a shark's fin, hovering near Sir Reginald like a shadow investor. Vale had poured fortunes into the production, his ledger a lifeline amid Crow's debts. Monsieur Vale, Poirot interjected during a break as the man sipped brandy from a hip flask. Your generosity sustains this artistry. Yet one wonders, what return do you seek beyond applause? Vale's eyes narrowed, his grip tightening on the flask. Art is fleeting, detective. Real estate endures. This theatre sits on prime land. A hit play boosts value, but failure opens doors to redevelopment. Reginald's vision is quaint, but profit is king. The premiere unfolded that night in a blaze of spotlights, the audience enraptured as the second act unveiled layers of deceit. Harrington discovering forged lineages, his empire crumbling under inherited sins. Cheers erupted at the curtain's fall, but the true drama awaited at the gala after-party in the theatre's opulent ballroom. Crystal flutes clinked under chandeliers that scattered light like shattered diamonds, the air perfumed with champagne bubbles and exotic orchids imported for the occasion. Sir Reginald held court at the centre, his laughter robust as he toasted the cast. To revelations that bind us, he proclaimed, raising a cocktail shimmering with gold flecks, a signature chalice of fate concocted for the event. Poirot, nursing a modest Perrier, observed from the fringes, Harlowe stealing glances at Lionel Beaumont, Reginald's nephew, their fingers brushing in secret. Crow huddled with Vale, their whispers laced with urgency. Even Miss Thorpe lingered, her archival eyes scanning the revelry. Then, as midnight tolled from a distant clock, Reginald faltered mid-anecdote. His face contorted, the chalice slipping from his grasp to shatter on the parquet floor. Foam flecked his lips, his body convulsing in agony as guests recoiled in horror. The air, the forgotten seed, blooms in vengeance. He gasped, clutching at Poirot's sleeve before collapsing into eternal stillness. Pandemonium reigned, screams piercing the night, physicians summoned in vain. Poirot knelt, his keen senses detecting the acrid hint of cyanide in the spilled elixir masked by the drink's citrus twist. Poison, swift and merciless, he declared to the assembling constables, administered moments ago in this very room. Interrogations ignited like fireworks. Poirot corralled suspects into alcoves, his questions darts finding marks. Lionel Beaumont, pale and trembling, confessed a rift. Uncle disapproved of Vivian and me, threatened to cut me from the will. But murder, I'd sooner flee to Paris. Harlow, tears streaking her rouge, added, Reginald knew of Victor Langford's scandal. He confided last week, feared retribution from a descendant. But Vale, he's been pressuring for control, offering buyouts. Poirot turned to the investor, cornering him by a balcony overlooking the Thames. Vale's composure cracked under scrutiny. You see opportunity in chaos, monsieur. The theatre's land, worth fortunes if the production folds. And Langford, your family ties, perhaps. Vale sneered, but Poirot unveiled evidence, a pilfered archive letter from Thorpe's vault, linking Vale's mother to Langford, a secret affair yielding an illegitimate heir. Vale himself, the forgotten seed, had invested not to save the play, but to sabotage it, claiming inheritance through destruction. The cyanide vial, traced to his flask via a monogram stopper, found amid the shards, sealed his fate. In a whirlwind confrontation, amid the dispersing crowd, Vale lunged with a concealed dagger, his greed unmasked in feral desperation. Poirot sidestepped nimbly, his cane tripping the assailant into the constable's grasp. Your act ends here, Poirot intoned. Justice, like the theatre, demands a reckoning. As dawn's first light pierced the ballroom's windows, painting the scene in hues of rose and gold, order tentatively returned. Vale's arrest unravelled his web. Forged documents aiming to seize the Lyceum, ties to prior sabotages veiled as accidents. The cast, shaken yet relieved, murmured of resuming under Lionel's tentative leadership. Harlow embraced him openly now, their future a blank script awaiting ink. Yet, as Poirot departed into the awakening streets, a spectral chill clung to him. Reginald's dying riddle echoed, but Vale's motives felt a pawn's ploy, not the king's gambit. Whispers of Langford's true legacy lingered, an apparition not fully banished. The third act loomed, its perils sharpening like a blade in the forge. Poirot hailed a cab, his resolve a fortress against the encroaching unknown, the city's pulse sinking with his own unyielding heartbeat. Chapter 4. Echoes of the final rehearsal. The fog had thickened into a shroud by midday, muffling the clamour of Covent Garden's market stalls and casting the Lyceum Theatre in an ethereal haze. Hercule Poirot, his footsteps deliberate on the damp pavement, approached the side entrance, with the weight of accumulated enigmas pressing upon him. 3 days since Sir Reginald's poisoned chalice had claimed its victim, and the theatre, resilient as a phoenix, teetered on the brink of its third act premiere. Desmond Vale's arrest had exposed greed's underbelly, yet Poirot's instincts clamoured like discordant bells. The threads converged not on a single knot, but a labyrinthine tangle. Langford's ghost loomed larger, his forgotten seed a seedbed for vendettas that spanned generations. Inside, the auditorium echoed with the ghosts of applause, empty seats staring like vacant eyes. Poirot had orchestrated this gathering, a private rehearsal turned inquisition, summoning the remnants of the cast and crew under the guise of polishing the finale. Elias Thorne paced the stage, his baritone rehearsing lines of redemption. Vivian Harlow adjusted her corset, her gaze flitting to Lionel Beaumont, now interim director, who fiddled with lighting cues from the booth. Alistair Crowe slouched in the front row, his squint deeper, shadowed by the spectre of complicity. Miss Evelyn Thorpe hovered in the aisles, clutching a sheaf of ancient playbills, while a handful of stage hands milled about, their tools clinking like uneasy talismans. "Mes amis," Poirot announced, ascending the stage with the poise of a maestro, his cane a conductor's wand. "We convene not merely to rehearse, but to unveil the tragedies that have befallen this house. They are no random strikes of fate, but echoes of a legacy forged in deception. Assemble, if you please." The group converged under the proscenium arch, the set transformed into a makeshift tribunal, velvet chairs arranged in a semicircle, spotlights casting interrogative beams. Poirot positioned himself at the center, his green eyes scanning each face like a lantern piercing mist. "We begin with the veil of identity. Monsieur Thorn, your portrayal of Lord Harrington, haunted by a doppelganger, mirrors reality, does it not?" Thorn stiffened, his actor's mask cracking. "What rot is this, Poirot? I've no twin. I'm an only child, orphaned young." "Ah, but documents deceive as adeptly as performers," Poirot countered, producing a weathered birth certificate from his pocket, procured from city records that morning. "Behold, Elias Thorn, born alongside a brother, separated at infancy, one raised in luxury, the other in obscurity. Your sibling, mon ami, where is he now?" Gasps rippled through the circle. Thorn's hands clenched. "Impossible. My parents never spoke of it. If true, what bearing on these deaths?" Poirot pivoted to Lionel. "Monsieur Beaumont, your uncle's will. Falsified, perhaps. A codicil added posthumously, disinheriting you in favor of an unnamed beneficiary." Lionel's face drained of color. "How did you—" "I found discrepancies in the archives, but I swear I altered nothing." The revelation cascaded, Poirot weaving facts like a tapestry. Miss Thorpe, compelled to confess, admitted discovering tampered ledgers in the vault, entries erased, signatures forged with ink that matched Lionel's drafting set. "It pointed to you, young Beaumont," she whispered, as if to frame you for the chaos. But Poirot's gaze shifted to Crowe, who fidgeted like a marionette with severed strings. "And you, directeur, your debts were but a smokescreen. Tell us of your masterful disguise, the one that allowed you to impersonate the vanished Langford in whispers to the press, stirring old scandals anew." Crowe's squint vanished in wide-eyed panic. "Absurd! I've no connection to that relic." "Yet your wardrobe yields evidence," Poirot pressed, signaling a stagehand to unveil a trunk from backstage. Within, a prosthetic nose, spectacles, and a cloak matching descriptions of a mysterious figure seen lurking near the theatre weeks prior. "You donned this guise to sow discord, escalating the curse to drive investors away, except Vale, your silent partner in the scheme." The air thickened with tension, conversations fracturing into accusations. Harlow interjected, her voice a whip crack. "Alistair, you and Vale, but why drag us into this abyss?" Crowe slumped, defeated. "Vale promised to buy me out, turn this into a cinema palace. But Reginald resisted. We needed the production to fail spectacularly, accidents to scare off the cast, poison to eliminate the stubborn. Langford's tale was convenient. I researched it, played the ghost to heighten fears." Poirot nodded, his mind a whirlwind of connections. And the family legacy. Langford's heir, not Vale alone, but a web, Thorn's twin, abandoned and vengeful, seeking retribution for a stolen life. Where is this phantom brother? A shadow stirred in the wings, a figure emerging cloaked in black, face obscured by a hood. The group recoiled as the intruder advanced, revealing features identical to Thorn's, save for a scar twisting his lip. "Here," he snarled, voice a gravelly echo of his brother's timbre. Elias got the spotlight. I, the scraps. Langford was our grandfather, his genius pilfered by Beaumont, our inheritance squandered. I allied with Crow, rigged the mishaps to reclaim what's mine. The confession ignited chaos. Thorn lunged at his twin, fists raised in betrayal's fury, while Lionel shouted for order. But amid the fray, Poirot's sharp eyes caught a glint, a syringe in the twin's grasp, aimed at his own throat in a feigned suicide bid. No, redirected subtly toward Poirot himself, a desperate bid to silence the unraveling. Time slowed as Poirot reacted, his cane sweeping in an arc to disarm the assailant. The syringe clattered across the boards, its contents spilling a viscous serum, later identified as a paralytic toxin. Constables, summoned discreetly beforehand, burst from the aisles, subduing the twin and Crow in a tangle of limbs and curses. Interrogations followed in the glow of house lights, revelations pouring forth like a breached dam. The twin, named Silas Thorne, detailed the plot. Falsified wills to redirect fortunes, disguises to infiltrate rehearsals, alliances forged in seedy taverns where grudges festered. Crow, his accomplice, had provided access, his directorial authority a key to the kingdom. We meant to bankrupt the theatre, Silas admitted, shackled and defiant, expose Beaumont's thefts, claim the legacy through legal chaos. Harlow, tear-streaked, embraced Lionel. It's over, the curse lifted. Poirot surveyed the scene, satisfaction mingling with a peculiar ache in his chest, a fleeting twinge dismissed as indigestion from a hasty lunch. The immediate veil lifts. Confession secured, the production may revive under honest stewardship. Justice, like the final bow, brings closure. As the group dispersed, the theatre exhaled, its boards creaking in relief. Thorne reconciled tentatively with his brother, whispers of therapy and shared royalties bridging the chasm. Lionel assumed command, vowing reforms, while Harlow's eyes sparkled with newfound freedom. Miss Thorpe archived the chaos, her ledgers a testament to truth unearthed. Yet, as Poirot lingered alone on stage, the spotlights dimming to embers, vulnerability gnawed at him. The twinge returned, sharper, a subtle poison from Silas's near miss, or echoes of prior brushes with peril. He straightened, moustache impeccably aligned, steeling his resolve. The denouement awaited, personal shadows merging with the case's fading light. Outside, the fog parted briefly, revealing stars like distant witnesses. Poirot descended the steps, cane tapping a resolute rhythm into the night's embrace, unaware how precariously his own curtain teetered. Chapter 5. The curtain falls eternal, the eve of the grand finale cloaked London in a tapestry of twilight hues, the sky a bruised canvas streaked with crimson and violet, as if the heavens themselves anticipated the drama below. Hercule Poirot, his frame unbowed despite the subtle ache gnawing at his side, a phantom twinge he attributed to the rigors of deduction, made his way through the throngs converging on the Lyceum Theatre. Whispers of the production's cursed aura had only fueled public fervour. Tickets scalped for fortunes, the marquee ablaze with electric promise. Tragedy in 3 acts, final performance. Poirot's invitation, a gilded relic from Sir Reginald's estate, granted him entry to the royal box, where velvet cushions awaited like silent confidants. The auditorium thrummed with expectancy, chandeliers casting prismatic rainbows over a sea of silk gowns and starched collars. Poirot settled in, his opera glasses poised, scanning the orchestra pit where musicians tuned instruments in harmonious discord. On stage, the set for the climactic 3rd act gleamed, a labyrinthine library of towering bookshelves flickering candelabras evoking forbidden knowledge, and a central dais where fates would collide. Elias Thorne, resilient as ever, embodied Lord Harrington's ultimate reckoning. Vivian Harlow, radiant in scarlet taffeta, portrayed the catalyst of downfall. Lionel Beaumont, now helming the helm with youthful zeal, had infused the revival with fresh vigor, banishing shadows of sabotage. Yet Poirot's vigilance pierced the glamour. Silas Thorne's capture and Alistair Crow's confessions had dismantled the visible conspiracy, but echoes persisted. Victor Langford's spectral influence, a collaborator presumed perished in obscurity. Poirot's inquiries that afternoon, discreet telegrams to continental archives, had unearthed fragments. Langford's death, a staged exile, his survival whispered in Parisian bohemian circles. The mastermind, reborn as Avenger, orchestrated the symphony of woes not for mere inheritance, but poetic justice, mirroring the play's motif of resurrected grievances. As the house lights dimmed, a hush descended like falling snow. The overture swelled, strings weeping in minor keys, building to a thunderous crescendo. The curtain ascended with a whisper of silk, revealing Harrington ensnared in his web of lies, confronting phantoms from his lineage. Thorne's soliloquy resonated. From ashes of betrayal, the wronged arise, their vengeance a blade forged in forgotten fires. Applause simmered, but Poirot's focus sharpened on anomalies. A stagehand's furtive glance, a prop book slightly askew, its spine embossed with an unfamiliar crest. Midway through the act, as Harlow's character unveiled a damning letter, the theatre's air grew thick, almost oppressive. Poirot felt the twinge intensify, a slow burn radiating from his abdomen, but he dismissed it, attributing it to the tension. Then chaos unfurled not in script, but reality. A figure materialized from the wings, cloaked in ebony, face veiled by a porcelain mask reminiscent of Greek tragedy. The intruder seized the dais, voice amplified by hidden mechanisms. Behold the true author. Reginald stole my essence, my echoes, and now his legacy crumbles. Pandemonium erupted, gasps rippling like waves, patrons rising in confusion. Lionel signaled frantically from the booth, but the spotlights converged on the interloper, who shed the mask to reveal a gaunt visage, eyes ablaze with decades of rancor. Victor Langford, alive and venomous, his features etched by time's cruel chisel. I wove this tapestry, he proclaimed, gesturing to the frozen cast, the understudy's jealousy, my planted seeds, the electrocution, my schemed sparks, Vale and Crow, puppets in my grand retribution, even the poisoned chalice, my final flourish. Poirot rose, his voice cutting through the din like a clarion call. Monsieur Langford, your resurrection is impressive, but your plot, a melodrama of clichés. Descend and face the music of justice. The audience, mistaking it for immersive theatre, murmured in awe. But Poirot navigated the aisles with purposeful strides, ascending the stage amid security's hesitation. Langford laughed, a hollow echo. Ah, the great detective. You've unraveled threads, but the weave is mine. Reginald's theft left me destitute. I faked death, bided time, infiltrated as a silent benefactor. Silas and Crow danced to my tune, oblivious to the conductor. Confrontation unfolded under the glaring lights, Poirot circling like a matador. Your motives, monsieur, noble in delusion, but evidence condemns. Correspondence intercepted, your Parisian hideout traced via telegrams, the toxin in Reginald's drink, sourced from your alchemical pursuits, residues matching those in prior incidents. Langford's composure frayed, his hand delving into his cloak for a concealed vial, a final gambit of airborne toxin to sow panic. But Poirot, anticipating, hurled his cane like a javelin, shattering the glass mid-air. Shards glittered as they fell, harmless now. Constables, alerted by Poirot's preemptive wire, surged from the wings, encircling the villain. Langford struggled, spitting defiance. The curtain falls, but my echo endures. Captured and led away, Langford's exit drew thunderous applause, the audience erupting in cheers, believing it scripted brilliance. The cast, recovering, improvised a triumphant close, Harrington's redemption, sins absolved in a blaze of pyrotechnics. Bows followed, ovations cascading like waterfalls. Lionel embraced Harlow on stage, their union symbolizing renewal. Elias Thorne beamed, his twin's shadow lifted through promised reconciliation behind bars. Poirot, retreating to the wings, felt triumph mingle with an escalating frailty. The twinge had blossomed into fire, his vision blurring at the edges. He slumped against a prop column, breath ragged. "Mon Dieu," he whispered, realization dawning like a cruel dawn. The syringe from Silas's assault, not thwarted entirely, a glancing prick, delayed toxin seeping insidious victory. Langford's ultimate irony, the detective felled by the very plot he dismantled. As the theatre emptied, echoes of laughter fading, Poirot summoned Lionel with a weakening gesture. "Young Beaumont, the legacy is yours. Preserve the art untainted." Lionel knelt, concern etching his features. "Poirot, you're pale. Summon aid." But Poirot waved him off, his voice a serene murmur. "The symmetry is perfect, mon ami. Life's tragedy unfolds in acts, pursuit, revelation, resolution. I have solved my final riddle, mortality's embrace." Visions flickered, past cases, Hastings' camaraderie, the order of his little grey cells yielding to eternal peace. His final words, a whisper to the emptying hall. The curtain falls, but the insight endures. Paramedics arrive too late, their efforts futile against the poison's inexorable grip. News spread like wildfire. Hercule Poirot, the unparalleled mind, departed amid the applause he deserved. The Lyceum dimmed its lights in tribute, the stage silent at last. Survivors found solace. Lionel revitalizing the theatre, Harlow starring in new ventures, Thorne mentoring the next generation. Langford's trial exposed all, his imprisonment a fitting coda. In the quiet aftermath, London mourned a legend, his legacy etched in annals of detection, a man who ordered chaos, whose end mirrored the dramas he unraveled. The fog outside lifted, stars piercing the veil, as if the universe itself applauded the irrevocable epilogue.